The New York Rangers got an outstanding performance from goalie Igor Shesterkin, and they are back in their series with the Carolina Hurricanes. John Chik of Locked On New York Rangers joins us to discuss that and what the Rangers have to do to get even in Game 4. All that and more coming up on the Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back to the Locked On NHL podcast. So glad you could join us today, and thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. It's my pleasure to welcome back a familiar face to the show, the host of Locked On New York Rangers, John Chik. And John, a big win for your team on Sunday. They're back in the series. What was the biggest difference to you in Game 3 as opposed to the first two games?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Game 1 was good. I thought the Rangers had a pretty strong showing for themselves in Game 1. It was just one of those things where they couldn't quite hold off the Canes in the third period. Canes kind of found their game, forced into overtime. They throw a puck at the net and they win. Game 2 was not good at all, though. I think the biggest difference between Game 3 and Game 2, the Rangers were just playing with more urgency today. And it just felt like they were very, very aware of the situation they were faced with. I mean, you cannot go down 3-0 to the Carolina Hurricanes. You can't go down 3-0 to anybody. But, I mean, a team like the Canes, they're a team that's kind of been knocking on the door of maybe even winning a championship these past couple of seasons. They're playoff battle-tested. The Rangers had to go home and kind of hold serve here. The Canes won the two games in their building. Rangers had to get this one here, work their way back into the series, and they were able to do that. And I think one of the biggest differences, I already mentioned, the fact that there was more urgency. I think the Rangers stars showed up in this one for sure. You had Fox to Panarin to Mika on the first goal on the power play. That was huge too. Finally cracking the code that is the Carolina Hurricanes penalty kill unit, because they're absolutely fantastic. And then the second goal was Kreider. And I know Trouba had one of the assists. I'm blanking on who had the other one, but I think it was Mika actually. But bottom line, the Rangers stars showed up in a big way, which in Game 2, like, I hate to kill them and be negative and everything, but they just didn't show up. They didn't give you enough that you would expect from those kinds of guys in Game 2. But, man, they knew they needed to win this one, and it definitely showed pretty much from the opening face-off all the way through.
Yeah, the old cliche is in the playoffs, your best players have to be your best players, and today they certainly were.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, these guys, like I said, they kind of just hit the ground running in this one, and, to kind of just build on the other thing that I mentioned a second ago, it's really big to me that the Rangers scored a goal on the power play against the Canes in this one here, because the last game, Game 2, they got some chances. They went 0 for 4 on the power play, and, 0 for 4 is obviously not good, but beyond that, it's just the simple fact that it never really looked like they were going to score. And they even got, a 4-minute power play. There was a double minor on, I believe it was Brady Shea, and, there just wasn't a whole lot happening. And then, of course, they give up the shorthanded goal to Brandon Smith, of all people. And then at the very end of that 4-minute power play, they take a penalty themselves. So a 4-minute power play can't go much worse than that, but they looked a lot better in this one. Just better puck movement and, just dialed in and creating some scoring chances. And Panarin to Mika, I mean, they've linked up for that goal countless times this season. It was great to see them do it against a top-notch PK unit in the playoffs for sure.
I'd be negligent if we didn't talk about Igor Shesterkin. 43 saves in this one. What did you see from him that you maybe didn't see consistently so far in the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, just cool, calm, and collected. Just the Igor that we all know and love. I mean, he tends to rise to the occasion and tends to be at his best, like a lot of the players on this Ranger team are, when, they've got their backs against the wall, so to speak. Against Pittsburgh, I thought overall in the series he played pretty well. It's just Game 3 was not good at all, and Game 4 was a complete disaster from start to finish. Game 4 was so bad, there's not a goalie on this planet that could have won that game the way that the Rangers played, in front of him. But in this series, so far, so good. And, it's interesting because, as a Ranger fan and the host of Locked On Rangers, I'm kind of fixated on what they're doing and, what they're doing well and what they're doing not so well. And there's been so much fixation on the Rangers not scoring goals in the first two games of this period, first two games of this series, which is absolutely true. They only had one goal in the first two games. But, all of a sudden you look at it, okay, we're 3 games into the series here. The Canes aren't really scoring goals either. They had the one goal in regulation in Game 1. They won it in overtime. Game 2, they won 2-0, but one of them was an empty netter with 1 second left. And then today, only 1 goal. So Igor's back, and I think the Rangers, they were shaky defensively early in this game, but they picked it up a little bit later, just kind of limited Carolina's scoring opportunities. I don't like the fact that they seemed like they were sitting back for too much of the second half of this game, but they held them off. They played good defense, blocking shots, breaking up some passes, just good stuff all around. And then, of course, as you mentioned, Gil, Igor Shesterkin being Igor Shesterkin.
And I got to give credit to the fans at the Garden. The atmosphere was top notch.
Yeah, I was feeling it today, man. Game 7 against the Penguins, it was kind of a weird feeling in the building. I feel like, part of it might just be that everybody's like so locked in because it's Game 7 and you're up against your rival who you can't stand, and it's win or go home, and everybody's just so locked into the play, and a little bit of nervousness as well. So again, just kind of a weird feeling. When they would score, the place would go nuts. But in this game today, I thought they kept up the energy pretty much right from the start all the way through, and that was big. Igor Shesterkin even talked about after the game how big that was, them kind of having his back, because after he gave up the soft goal that we were talking about before we started recording here, Gil, the crowd immediately started doing Igor chants, and it's 2-1 at that point, and you're trying to hold off this great team. So that was awesome. I thought the Ranger fans in the Garden really stepped up today and really created a really positive atmosphere for the team.
What do the Rangers have to do to keep the momentum that they got in Game 3 going? I mean, obviously, Game 4, you don't want to go back to Carolina down 3-1. So what does this team have to do?
Yeah, no, you don't want to go down 3-1. I mean, I know they just came back from 3-1 against the Penguins, but, man, you're really playing with fire. I mean, how many times can you do that in a single playoff run, right? So, yeah, you got to win this next one as well. I think for the most part, just stick to what they did today. Overall playing pretty physical hockey, I thought. Finding a way to win the special teams battle, which is always big in the playoffs. I don't think they're going to have a game in this series where they win the faceoff battle. I mean, the Canes are just really good at winning faceoffs, and the Rangers aren't. There's no magic wand that you can just wave at this point. One thing that I'd like to see them do better, though, and I've talked about this on my show, and I hate to be the guy that just screams shoot the entire game. Any hockey game you go to, there's always like one person in the stands yelling shoot. But yeah, there have been times in this series where they seem to have some really good chances and they opt for that extra pass. And a lot of times you've got a guy who's in prime scoring real estate and he's passing to a guy who's not in as good of a position as he is. There was a good example of that today when they were up 2-1. Lafreniere, I mean, he was in the slot. He was ready to rip it. You figure he can pick one of the corners, and he passes to Kopp, who's kind of on his left. And, Kopp got a shot. The save was made. But, man, Loft should have just taken it himself. Just one example. But that's part of how they got back into the Pittsburgh series as well. Games 6 and 7, they were just letting it fly, and it worked. And then they got away from that again in games 1 and 2 here. Today they got back to that a little bit. But I'd like to see them just get back to that as much as possible. When in doubt, just throw the puck at the net. Antti Raanta, very good goalie, but he's not Patrick Waugh in his prime. So let's test him a little bit. He wasn't tested at all in Game 2. He was great in Game 1, not tested at all in Game 2.
All right, John, why don't you tell our listeners and our viewers where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
Yeah, so you can find the podcast anywhere. I mean, wherever you're listening to this, you can find the podcast as well. We're on YouTube also. And as far as my own personal Twitter handle, at jchik17. And then you got the show Twitter handle as well. That's at LO_NY_Rangers. Definitely give us a follow. And yeah, we'll have some fun watching this crazy Ranger playoff run that we're all going through here together.
All right, John, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Gil. Pleasure as always.
Our next partner has a product I literally use every day. I started taking AG1 because I really hate taking pills and vitamins, and I wanted a supplement that actually tastes great. Now, I've been using this stuff for about 7 weeks now, and I love it. It doesn't taste like it's super healthy. It has a kind of mild tropical taste that I actually look forward to each morning. What is this stuff? Well, with one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. All of these things. And it's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. It contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, while still tasting good. And it costs less than $3 a day. You're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than your cold brew habit. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day, and that's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your gut health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.